Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about the immigration issues between the countries of Mexico and the United States, but it might not be what you're expecting. How's it going everybody? Welcome to Virtual History 360 3.0. Okay, did you notice anything different? See, we're starting out and we're trying a new format. I hope you like it. So let's go ahead and get started with today's video. Now, today I want to talk about Texas and what happened before they became a state. See, it goes all the way back to Moses Austin. See, he was a businessman and he wanted to start his own colony in Spanish territory, and he was granted permission by Spain in 1821. But unfortunately for him, he died that same year. But his son Stephen picked up the mantle and brought with him 297 families to settle that land. Now, this all happened at the same time as Mexico declaring its independence from Spain. So now Texas is part of Mexico. Okay, you with me? Now, there were stipulations to this settlement. You see, settlers had to promise to become Mexican citizens, and they had to promise to join the Catholic Church. Seems simple enough, but there were problems. Now, by 1830, there were about 25,000 Americans, compared to only about 4,000 Tejanos. A Tejano was a Texan of Mexican descent as opposed to American. And these Americans, they weren't quiet about their complaints. Since they were used to governing themselves, they hated having to answer to this Mexican government. And on top of that, they didn't want to learn Spanish. And they were unhappy that all official documents had to be in the language. Seems kind of odd, right? You move to Mexico and it's in their language. Arrogant, don't you think? But anyway, here's the kicker. Many of these settlers were crossing into Mexico illegally. They showed little respect for the culture, and they never intended to become citizens. Sounds eerily familiar. Maybe reversed, but it's very similar to what you see on the news today, right? Now, these Americans were also upset that Mexico had outlawed slavery in 1829. You see, the land in Texas was great for growing cotton, and these Americans wanted to bring slaves in with them for labor. Well, Mexico responded to these complaints by closing the border to all new immigration and sent troops to enforce the law. This upset the Americans, and soon they were calling for their own revolution. Now, fast forward to 1833. Remember Moses Austin's son, Stephen F. Austin travels to Mexico to demand their sovereignty in front of General Santa Anna, the guy that just took over control of the Mexican government. Now, Santa Anna did what any dictator would do. He threw Austin in jail for promoting a rebellion. 2 years later, Austin was released from prison, and the Texans started their own rebellion. Santa Anna couldn't have this, so he marched his troops. He had about 6,000 troops with him. He marched them north into Texas, and in February of 1836, they made it to San Antonio. What do you say we head out there and check it out? Here, this location right here, they encountered 180 Texan volunteers defending the town. When the Mexican soldiers arrived, these Texans moved into an old mission that was known as the Alamo. There they set up their own fort to defend. Santa Anna sent a message. He sent a black flag that let them know there would be no mercy. You see, he expected the Texans to surrender, but they didn't. The Mexican army laid siege on the Alamo for 12 days, and on the morning of March 6th, they stormed the fort. Now, although the fighting only lasted for about 90 minutes, every last one of the Texan soldiers were killed. Now, the myth is that there were no survivors of the Alamo, but if that's the case, how would we know what happened? In fact, women and children were allowed to survive and allowed to leave so that they could report what happened. And that's how we know what happened. First-hand accounts from the survivors. That's how you learn history. Now, getting back to the story, instead of giving up in defeat, these Texans used the Alamo as a rallying point. You see, Austin's plan was to lure Santa Anna deeper into Texas so he couldn't resupply his army. And eventually they met at the San Jacinto River, and they launched a sneak attack, catching the Mexican army off guard. Now, Santa Anna fled, but he was captured the next day. And in exchange for his freedom, he agreed to pull the rest of the Mexican soldiers out of Texas. This effectively ended the revolution, all with the cry, "Remember the Alamo!" Now, Texas was its own independent country. But things weren't perfect, and that's for later, okay? Soon they petitioned to be admitted into the United States. Now, as this story is for another day, I won't go into great detail, but just know that statehood created tension between the U.S. and Mexico. and eventually that tension boiled over into war. But we'll get to that. Now, if you like this video, go ahead and hit like and subscribe, okay? I hope these videos help you with your U.S. history classes. And, let me know if there's any topics that you want me to go over. Just leave them in the comments down there, all right? So for Virtual History 360, I'm Mr. Wade. Thank you.